Crispin, I will kick off this conversation with you. You had a distinguished participation in the film, and as far as I know, you were the only European politician who visited the Rابعة sit-in twice before the massacre in the 14th of August, and you tried to prevent the bloodshed. Tell us more about these visits and what happened.
Well, by complete coincidence, I had a former constituent who was a British national but of Egyptian extraction, and he was a hotelier by background, and he had ended up looking after President Sadat, I think. And as a result of that, he was running two five-star hotels in Cairo, one in Cairo, one in Luxor years later. And they were, in 1990, they were expropriated by the Mubarak regime. And by 1997, I was elected as Member of Parliament for Reigate. He came to see me to assist his effort to get some recompense for the way the hotels were taken off him. And by some miracle, the case went to the International Centre for the Settlement of Investment Disputes in New York, and under the treaty between the United Kingdom and Egypt about settlement of investment disputes, he got recompense. And during the course of that time, he had become devout, and he was engaged with members of the Egyptian Islamist movement, the Brotherhood. In its widest sense, he had set up a medical centre in Cairo, and so I had this extraordinary introduction to the world of Egyptian politics. And at the beginning of July 2013, he came to see me. Actually, or he came to see me, but I was to try and get a visa for a family relative to give him a transplant. He needed to save his life. But it obviously gave me the opportunity then to go and visit, and I took the opportunity to go twice with him in July, and each time we were able to get into the square and to talk to the leadership who were in the square, those that hadn't been arrested. And I dare say people would be obviously people here who I met at the time there, and my comments there at the end also reflected my conclusions as to what I'd seen. And I left on the 31st of July 2013, and I messaged the Middle East Minister, Alistair Burt, to say we needed to démarche the Egyptians, because if they did what was plainly being planned, because all the on Egyptian television, and as I left, you could sense that the population were being prepared for the scale of bloodshed that was likely to occur if what was planned did actually happen. And at least then it appeared, it looked as though it was imminent on the 31st of July. But 2 weeks later, obviously whatever had been said between the British government and Western governments and the Egyptian military failed to have any effect, and what happened, and it's obviously a terrible outcome for the people who were there, and I think the film did huge credit to it. But it's also a pretty awful outcome for Western policy and the things that we support and supposed to support about human rights. It's a terrible rebuke.